Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Beanie, and welcome back to another video. And guys, we're starting back the top 10 lists. I'm so excited for this. I did the top 10s earlier in the year, and they were so much fun to do. And now they're going to be even more fun because we have a ton of players to go through. And I was waiting until we had a good enough player base to where the lists would be drastically different from the ones that I did earlier in the year, and I think we are finally at that point. We have enough players to really kind of differentiate the list from each other. So we're gonna get into it today, and we're gonna start out with the top 10 catchers, a list that is going to look a lot different than it did earlier. But I will say that even though we just got the 99 Johnny Bench, and since the video we've gotten the 99 Mauer and the 99 Molina and stuff like that, catcher is still overall a fairly weak position. There aren't relative to the other positions, there really aren't a ton of great options outside of the Mauer and I guess like the Molina, and there are a lot of guys that have some significant flaws. So we will talk about that as we go through the list, but yeah, let's get into it. Starting out with a few honorable mentions, I just couldn't find a spot for this 96 Yogi Berra. First of all, he's a lefty that hits lefties really good, but doesn't hit righties all that great. And that automatically just takes a lot of points off of him, just because reverse split lefties are almost never a good thing, and he just doesn't hit righties good enough for me to consider putting him on the list. But he does play good defense, and he's not just completely inept against righties, and he does have that 99 vision, which will help him play up. But another problem with him is that he's really slow and he's really short, and I never hit that well with short players. So yeah, I just couldn't find a spot for him in the top 10. So yeah, he is left to the honorable mention section. Another honorable mention that I just couldn't find a spot for is the 93 overall Salvador Perez. And this guy is really good defensively, but I have kind of tested out catcher defense several times, and at best it's inconsistent. It's kind of tough to tell how good a catcher is going to be based off their attributes. For example, the Jorge Posada and the Victor Martinez, who actually doesn't even have a primary at catcher, like the Victor actually ended up playing a lot better than the Posada, even though the Posada's attributes are like way better. So it's just kind of inconsistent. So I'm not weighting catcher defense. I'm weighting it a little bit, but not nearly as much as I'm weighting their offensive capabilities in this list. And also, just one more note is that this is primary catchers only, so you won't see Victor on this list because he is a primary first baseman. But yeah, back to Salvador Perez. This Salvador Perez, like I said, he's really solid defensively, a good arm, good fielding, but his blocking really isn't that great. He's super slow, and as offensively, he's just okay. 72-83 versus righties is definitely good, but against lefties, he's probably a guy that you would want to platoon with, and that's just weird when you have to platoon with a righty. So I'm not a huge fan of this card, and definitely not enough to put him on the top 10. The final honorable mention spot is going to go to the 94 overall Carlos Ruiz, and he's another guy that I actually kind of would have liked to find a spot for on the bottom of the list, but once I got down to it, I had to pick between him and a couple of other guys, and I just ended up kind of liking the other guys a little bit more. But I definitely think that this card has a lot of value, and he would be a good asset on your team if you know, you kind of have a hole at catcher and you need somebody to get there. He's a very balanced hitter with good enough power to make a difference. 69, 66, you know, that's good enough to hit a few doubles every now and hit the occasional home run, and he has high vision and high contact, so you're not going to be dealing with a small PCI or anything like that, and he has good defense to go along with it, you know, mid 80s across the board kind of. So yeah, not a bad card overall. He was probably number 11 on the list. I'll say that. He is probably the closest to making the list that didn't. Okay, but finally moving on to the list, at number 10, we have the 92 overall Jonathan Lucroy, and it was very, very, very close between him and Carlos Ruiz. And you may be asking why I went with a Lucroy over the Carlos Ruiz, and a lot of it has to do with his height. Because the Ruiz probably has better defense, and he has a little bit more power than this Lucroy, but this Lucroy has better vision, and he's taller. so his PCI isn't going to be as squeezed in as the Carlos Ruiz's. Plus, he has a little bit more speed so that he can stretch an extra double here or there that maybe Carlos Ruiz wouldn't be able to. So I just ended up giving a little bit more value to this Lucroy, and I could definitely see an argument that he should be maybe even a little bit higher on this list, but the one thing that kind of keeps him towards the bottom is his one-handed compact swing, which is the only swing in the game that's worse than that is the one-handed long swing. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of his swing, and I used this card all year, and it did seem to play a little bit under its attributes because of that. So I couldn't really justify putting him any higher on the list. So he has to settle for number 10 on the top 10 catcher list. Coming in at number 9 is the 95 overall Carlton Fisk. And this is a card that doesn't get a lot of press. It doesn't get a lot of hype. But it's pretty deadgum solid. It's kind of like a better offensive version, but a worse defensive version than Salvador Perez, because he does have those reverse splits. He is a right-handed type of guy that you would want to platoon, but he hits righties good enough to where you can maybe justify it. And he has really solid vision. He has some pop. Against righties, this guy is going to be fine, but you are probably going to want to find a guy that hits lefties better to platoon with him. But luckily, at catcher, one of the strengths at catcher is the fact that there are a ton of guys who absolutely destroy left-handed pitching but don't do as good against righties. This guy is the opposite of that. So you can kind of play both of those two player types with each other and end up getting a solid overall catcher. So I like this guy. I think that this guy could definitely have a place on your team if you have a need at catcher, and I put him at number 9 on the list. Hey, speaking of good platoons for Carlton Fisk, the 94 overall Russell Martin. And this is a card that I think he gets a bad rap because he doesn't hit righties all that good. But if you have one of those guys like Carlton Fisk who hits the hell out of righties but just can't really get it done against lefties as much, this is the perfect catcher for you, not only because he's 95-84 with 79 vision versus lefties, but also because he has the best swing in the game. He has a two-handed compact swing, so that makes all of his attributes play up. For example, I would much rather have this guy hitting against a lefty than the 99 overall Johnny Bench, because the Johnny Bench has the worst swing in the game. So I think 95-84-79 will play better than whatever Bench has. I think it's like 99-99 with 72 vision or something like that. The only reason I have the Bench higher is because all of his other stuff is better too. But in that specific situation, hitting against a left-handed pitcher, I would rather have this Russell Martin card than the Johnny Bench, and it's all because of that swing. And so I really think that makes this card play up. And his defense is very, very good. He has some of the highest blocking in the game. We're still not sure how much that matters, but it's definitely nice to have in case it does matter. And he has 67 speed, which is among the best in the game for catchers. So overall, just a really, really solid card. At number 7, we have another guy who absolutely destroys left-handed pitching, and it's the 96 overall Gary Carter. Now, Gary Carter has a two-handed long swing, so that basically means what you see is what you get as far as his attributes go, which means he really will just absolutely destroy left-handed pitching. But against right-handed pitching, he's not going to be as good. He does have that 75 power, but the 55 contact with 68 vision, you are going to be playing with a smaller PCI, especially if you're playing on Hall of Fame difficulty. So that could definitely be an issue, and that kind of relegates this guy to kind of being a platoon option on the bench for someone who hits righties a little bit better. But I have seen a lot of guys just use this Gary Carter period, and they seem to do fine against righties. And I don't know, maybe they really like his defense too, because he does have good blocking, good arm strength. Defensively, he's also a very, very solid catcher. But overall, just a very solid card, and I think definitely worthy of number 7 on the list. At number 6, we have another shocker, a guy who absolutely destroys left-handed pitching. It seems to be kind of a theme with catchers this year, is that they just all absolutely murder left-handed pitching. But this Buster Posey is very similar to the Gary Carter in that he has a two-handed long swing, decent defense to go along with, just a monster versus lefties. The only difference is that their contact and power are kind of reversed against righties, and Buster Posey's vision is a little bit better. So that kind of gave the edge to Posey was the vision part, just that you'll be dealing with a bigger PCI all the time, and I don't know. He's probably not going to hit that many home runs versus right-handed pitching. Definitely not as much as Gary Carter will. But he is probably going to have a much higher average than Gary Carter, and he's going to be able to make solid contact more often, which I think is a little bit more important. So yeah, I put him at number 6 on the list because of that. Okay, getting into the top 5, finally, we have somebody that's different. We have somebody that destroys right-handed pitching, and that is the 92 overall Gary Sanchez. This guy is not going to be awesome for you defensively. He's really not. He does have a strong arm, but his blocking isn't that great. His fielding isn't that great. If you're somebody that thinks catcher defense is important, or like really important, this isn't the guy for you. I'm not one of those guys, though, so I think that this card is awesome. So he has 90 contact, 91 power versus righties. That is among the best in the game for a catcher. The one big issue with this card is the 45 vision and 41 contact versus lefties, because he still has 92 power. He actually has more power versus lefties than he does righties, but you're going to be dealing with an awfully tiny PCI. Even against righties, your PCI is going to be smaller than you would expect with 90 contact, because 45 vision is definitely enough to drag that contact way down. But I know so many people who actually prefer a smaller PCI. I'm not one of them, but I know that there are enough of those people out there that they would actually do better with this Gary Sanchez than they would a lot of other guys that have bigger PCIs. So I'm not going to penalize him too hard for that vision, and I would definitely take him just for the fact that he hits righties better over the 3 previously mentioned catchers who hit lefties better, just because I do think that your attributes versus righties are a tad bit more important than they are versus lefties. This year, it's definitely, the gap is closed in that respect, just because you see a lot more left-handed pitchers this year than you have in years past. But I still think that attributes versus righties does get the slight edge. So in that, therefore Gary Sanchez gets the edge versus those other guys. So Gary Sanchez coming in at number 5. At number 4 was the most difficult guy to place on this list, and I also heavily considered using his other version, but I debated for a while between the 95 Jorge Posada and the 92 Jorge Posada, but I finally ended up going with the 95 version just because he has more power, and I decided not to penalize him that much for the vision problem, even though this one has much better vision. This one's just better defensively, and he has more power, so I feel like he has more broad appeal than that 92 overall version, and it's about you guys. It's not about me. It's not about what I would want. I would probably want the 92 version, but I think most people would want the 95 version. And this card does have its issues, though. His swing is fine, especially for a switch hitter. He has a two-handed long swing, so that kind of, like I said, that kind of means what you see is what you get with this card as far as his attributes go. The big problem, though, with this card is that he has an auto shift on him, which, if you've ever played with Carlos Beltran or any other guys that have auto shifts on them, it can be very, very difficult to beat if you don't have runners on base. So what I would suggest is not hitting this guy anywhere close to the top of the lineup. I would hit him like maybe 7th or somewhere like that, somewhere where you are pretty confident that he's going to be coming on with runners on base, because if you have runners on base, then the auto shift isn't going to be they'll be in a normal shift. So it's not going to affect you. And I would always put him behind a guy that I was really confident with too. just so, you know, you can maximize his potential by getting him on base or you can avoid getting him at the plate without runners on base. So yeah, that is a huge issue with this card, and it definitely made me consider putting him a little bit lower on the list. But the fact that he's a switch hitter definitely mitigates some of that, and I feel like it justifies putting him this high on the list at number 4. So yeah, already we're at the top 3. Let's go. Who is number 3? Obviously, there are 3, I guess, obvious names left. Who do you guys think is going to be at number 3? Let me know in the comments. Actually, don't. Let's just go ahead and get into it. At number 3 is the 99 overall Johnny Bench, and I have went back and forth with myself basically all night last night and all day today, trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to put this guy or the number 2 guy at number 3. And in the end, I just could not get past the fact that Johnny Bench has a one-handed long swing, and that is the worst swing in the game. It generates a ton of top spin. It's very difficult to generate a lot of power with that swing, and I couldn't get past it. So I ended up putting this guy at number 3, even though his attributes are definitely better than the next guy. And you know, from an attribute standpoint, this guy's a fucking monster. I mean, 72-94 versus righties, 97-99 versus lefties, 76 vision. Defensively, he's probably the second best catcher in the game. Lots to like about this card, but man, it is just too hard to get past that one-handed long swing. If he had a two-handed compact swing, this may be the best card in the game, but he doesn't. He has the worst swing in the game, so you have to deal with that. And yeah, for that reason, I put him at number 3 on this list, but moving on to number 2. Now that I think about it, there are probably a lot of people who would actually want me to put this guy at number 1 just because I think they have a tendency to overvalue catcher defense, but there is no doubt that this card is just an absolute monster defensively. If that's something that's important to you, this is the card for you. But I just think the next card is just superior in a lot of different ways, but yeah, this Yadier Molina, the 99 overall Molina, he is kind of like the Posey or the Carter. He has a two-handed long swing, and he hits lefties a lot better. You know, he has a lot of power against lefties, almost perfect contact, very, very high vision. You're always going to be dealing with a big PCI, so that's really nice. And the two-handed long swing, what you see is what you get. So you can kind of trust his attributes to play basically about how they are. Against righties, he's going to have probably a pretty high average and hit a few doubles every now and then, the occasional home run. And then against lefties, he's going to be a monster. You know, tons of doubles, tons of home runs, and a very, very high average. So that's basically what you get offensively from this Yadier Molina, and then maybe you may throw out an extra base runner or two with this card, but he's not going to be stealing any bases himself or anything like that. He's slow as shit. So yeah, you might want to take that into account too. But holy crap, dude, he has a secondary at first base. Can you imagine how good this guy would be at first base? I mean, I'm not saying put him there. I'm just saying defensively, like I would just kind of like to see how defense this good would play at first base, because we really don't have anybody like that. Like, imagine turning like a 3-6-3 double player, a 3-5-3 double player, or anything like that. Like, I mean, it would just be the easiest thing ever with this card, right? Yeah. So, but don't do that. That's a bad idea. You want a better bat at first base. But yeah, anyways, I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but yeah, this Yadier Molina is great. He's the second best catcher in the game, but I just don't think that he can measure up to the number 1 guy, who is... It's the 99 overall Joe Mauer. There really is no doubt in my mind that it's this card. He is just too good. I mean, he is obscenely good in this game. A lot of people say that he was better last year, but I don't know about that, man. He's killing it for me this year. Just look at his stat. I mean, he's hitting .403 at 1214 OPS. he's absolutely killing it. If you can get a guy that's hitting over 400 at catcher with a 1200 OPS, I mean, that's about as good as it gets in this game at catcher. But yeah, he's just a monster, and he has the best swing in the game, right? He has the same swing as Russell Martin, except it's from the left side. So think kind of Corey Seager kind of has that type of swing going on, and he just has amazing attributes to back it up. 99 contact, 92 vision, 91 power, and he's even good enough to use versus lefties too, because that swing really does make that 58 power play up. He's just a stud in every way possible. He's my favorite card in the game. He has above average speed for a catcher, which is cool. I love everything about this card. He may be my favorite card in the game, outside of maybe Andre Dawson, but I don't know, man. Honestly, I may like this card even better. I just think he provides so much more value over the second best guy at catcher that he just retains a ton of value in this game. He's really, really awesome. So yeah, that is the number one guy. And what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with my top 10? Let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Tomorrow I'm going to try to put out the top 10 first basemen in MLB The Show. So yeah, be on the lookout for that, guys. But until then, I will see y'all later. Peace!